Despite Donald Trump's energetic effort on the campaign trail to distance himself from the controversial Project 2025...
I don't know what the hell it is. It's Project 25.
I purposely have not read it. I could, but I don't want to.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
He was very quick to implement many of the report's recommendations over the past year. Tonight, an in-depth look at Trump's policy triumphs and failures so far, and a look at how much more of Project 2025 there's left to implement in 2026. Next.
This is Washington Week with The Atlantic. Corporate funding provided by Consumer Cellular.
Certified financial planner professionals are proud to support Washington Week with The Atlantic. CFP professionals are committed to acting in their clients' best interest. More information at letsmakeaplan.org.
Additional funding is provided by Koo and Patricia Ewan through the Ewan Foundation, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities. Sandra and Carl DeLay Magnuson, Rose Herschel and Andy Shreves, Robert and Susan Rosenbaum, Charles Hamowy through the Charles Hamowy Fund, Steve and Marilyn Kerman, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you. Once again, from the David M. Rubenstein studio at WETA in Washington, Editor-in-Chief of The Atlantic and moderator, Jeffrey Goldberg.
Good evening and welcome to Washington Week. Tonight, we're going to talk about the rarest of birds in the Washington ecosystem, a policy report that someone actually read. The Heritage Foundation, formerly a think tank, now something closer akin to the MAGA movement's waiting room, has a fairly revolutionary vision for America. In Donald Trump, Heritage found someone who would readily take to its views. Trump made a lot of noise about the irrelevance of Project 2025 when he was campaigning, but the proof of the pudding is in the implementation. His administration has taken many of Project 2025's ideas and is poised to take even more. Joining me tonight to discuss this and more, Peter Baker, the chief White House correspondent at the New York Times. Leigh Caldwell is the chief Washington correspondent for Puck. Laura Barrón-López is a White House correspondent for MS Now. And David Graham is a staff writer at The Atlantic and the author of The Project, How Project 2025 is Reshaping America. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you've had good holidays so far. David, you wrote this book, very nice looking book. We've excerpted it. I want to start, let's start at near the beginning of Project 2025. Give us the overview. What did its authors, and you could talk about the authors a little bit if you want, what do the authors want the executive branch to do?
So a lot of these authors came from the first Trump administration, and they had this real frustration that Trump hadn't gotten nearly as much done as they wanted. But I think he kind of fired their imaginations. So their idea was to put together this vision for sort of maximalist executive power. They would take power from Congress, sort of undermine the administrative state, and use all this to establish a very socially conservative vision of America. They talk about a biblically based vision of the family. So it's a plan to overhaul the way government works, and then from there to overhaul what American society looks like writ large.
Right. So talk a little bit about some of the main areas of focus, and then I'm going to ask our panel to go into some of those areas in a little bit more depth.
Yeah, I think a couple key things. One of them is immigration, which of course has been a priority for Trump for a long time. And you see them pushing beyond, it's not just closing the border, it's not just reducing illegal immigration, it's also cracking down on visas, it's denaturalizing people, really sort of closing off the U.S. in many ways.
Reversing the effect of immigration, not simply slowing immigration
Exactly,
down.
Right. You see them, putting a lot of power to the president, so trying to take over independent agencies, taking power from Congress about a lot of these things, creating a president without checks and balances. Right. Connected to that, you see sidelining Congress, taking these powers, impoundment, for example, so the president can kind of do whatever he wants. And then finally, you have this very traditionalist vision of how society should work. So, men as breadwinners, women at home, taking care of children, abortion banned, this kind of, pro-natalist vision that we've heard from people like J.D. Vance as well.
Right. Who were the most important people in the making of Project 2025?
I think the most important one really is Russell Vought, who's kind of the intellectual architect of this, had the plan for how government could do the things that they wanted to do, head of the Office of Management and Budget in Trump's first term, and again now.
Right. And why did Trump, any one of you could answer this question actually, why did Trump disavow 2025, and then immediately hire its author or main author to run one of the most important functions of his government, how it's managed and budgeted?
I mean, because it was incredibly unpopular during the campaign trail, and there was polling that showed that, and that voters weren't necessarily aligned with this. And so even Susie Wiles at the time and Chris Losavido,
the chief of staff,
the chief of staff, one of his campaign managers, said the demise of Project 2025 could not come soon enough, and people associated with it should not claim to be associated with the campaign. Of course, that was false at the time. That was not true. And more than just Russell Vogt, a number of other authors of Project 2025 work inside of the government, including at various departments.
Right. What I'm getting at is was it conscious gaslighting of the public, or did they actually not want anything to do with Project 2025?
It was conscious gaslighting of the
Definitely
public.
conscious gaslighting?
Definitely conscious gaslighting.
I took a vote around the panel.
I mean,
It was conscious
Project
gaslighting.
2025 also created an entire list of some 10,000 people that were going to be Trump loyalists that could then staff the government and be across the government and do exactly what the president wanted.
The reason I ask about the gaslighting is that I'm impressed that they had the discipline to keep to that one message for several months, that we don't know what 2025 is and we've never heard of it and we don't like it if we had heard of it.
I mean, look, if you were to fact check what you just played with Donald Trump, that's one where he might actually pass muster. He probably didn't read it, right? This is a lot of people who are imputing their own agendas onto Trump's presidency that he's okay with, right? He actually goes along with all of these things, most of these things, a lot of these things, they suit his ideas. But this is a remarkable thing in history, Jeff, if you think about it. This is the only time, really, if you don't count Grover Cleveland, in which a president had a 4-year break after having been president, experienced what it was like, to try to figure out, okay, if I have a chance to do it again, what would I do differently? Or the people around him are figuring that out, right? And they came up with this plan that really has been a blueprint. Every other second-term president had to go immediately from their reelect into the second term, never a chance to pause, think through what the plan might be. That's why they've been more effective at accomplishing a lot of these goals.
I'll give you $10,000 if you tell me what Grover Cleveland did in his interregnum.
Well, I think he got married, actually, didn't he?
Oh. That does not going to get you $10,000.
He did not have a project.
Yeah. I count Grover Cleveland, by the way. You say don't discount Grover Cleveland, but we all take Grover Cleveland very seriously.
His project 1892 was very, very
Project 1892. So, Laura, let me go to the immigration questions. Discuss this plan's immigration vision, how much it aligns with what we're seeing right now, and how far down the road it is in implementation.
It aligns very closely with what was laid out in Project 2025, including kind of this meshing of and melding and bringing together of the Customs and Border Protection agents and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE agents. And so bringing Border Patrol into the interior and having them more involved in rounding up immigrants was one of the visions of Project 2020.
But just so people understand it, the Border Patrol literally stays within how many miles? It's previously meant to stay within how many miles of the actual border?
Operating within 100 miles or so of the border. And yes, oftentimes they are just right there along the border in those border towns. They operate very differently than ICE agents. They are used to dealing much more with cartels and violent criminals and operating, along the border and outside of the border and that so forth and like that. But ICE agents actually operate very differently. They tend to take their time to figure out if there is a criminal or to figure out what kind of targets they want to go and arrest inside the interior of the United States, in U.S. cities. And we've seen that all go by the wayside, where there are mass roundups. There are people who have no criminal convictions and no history of criminal convictions being rounded up. But I recently spoke to Paul Dance, who was the director of Project 2025 at the time, and he was pushed to the side and kind of was the fall and scapegoat during the campaign cycle when they wanted to distance themselves from it. And he told me that immigration was the one reason that Trump got elected, and it was one of the main, if not the main, directives of Project 2025.
And it's one of the reasons that Joe Biden came in for so much criticism from middle-of-the-road Americans.
But he also said that one of the other visions that to me is key here, and we're starting to see heading more into the new year, is the attack and the targeting of legal immigration. And he said that they want to see that go down to a very, quote, light drip, where that means almost no legal immigration is allowed into the U.S.
A light drip. Leanne, on Congress, the Republicans in Congress seem to, whether or not they meant to go along with this vision, they do go along with this vision. They have stopped providing oversight of the executive branch.
Yeah. I mean, they're trying to get a little bit back now, but yes. I mean, Congress is complicit in handing over their power to the executive branch. And to be, fair to Project 2025, they wrote a line about Congress that given the choice between being powerful but vulnerable or irrelevant but famous, most members of Congress have chosen the latter. So being vulnerable and famous. So this is, I mean, they understood the weakness of Congress and how
it's almost like they understood the psychological weakness of Congress people.
And how it operates now, how getting on, with influencers or on cable news or fundraising are most members of Congress's priorities now. And Congress has been handing over a lot of their power over the decades. Every president wants to abolish Congress, essentially. But they saw this weakness, and so their plan was, because Congress isn't doing their job anyway, the president needs to step in through executive orders, through impoundment, as far as appropriations are concerned, and take back some control of the, quote, administrative state, the federal government. And Congress has, even now, when this president is more effective at it than many other presidents previously, are letting them do this.
So, David, on this question about Congress, is this an evolutionary change or a revolutionary change? It seems from what Leanne is saying that they were moving in this. I mean, we all make the joke about everybody in Congress is just trying out to be a podcaster at this point. But how revolutionary is this in historical terms?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's exactly right. They have been, this is from an understanding of Congress. Russell Vought spent time in both the Senate and the House. He knew whereof he spoke. And,
as a staff.
Right, as a staff member.
Yeah.
And I think this is an evolution that has been happening of Congress giving it up. But I think the result is going to be more revolutionary. If we look at, for example, control of the administrative state, if we look at the way the Supreme Court seems poised to hand over control of independent regulatory agencies to the White House, we're looking at a really huge shift in the way the government relates to individual citizens, and in Congress giving up that power. And I think that's more than just a kind of, gradual de-empowerment of Congress.
Right. Peter, first talk about the Grover Cleveland administration even more. But when you finish with that, talk about the way the Republicans act now in Congress versus the way they acted or led in the Nixon administration, in the latter days of the Nixon administration.
Yeah. Well, I would say, by the way, that Grover Cleveland's second term was hobbled by economic repression. And that's exactly what this administration is worried about. So there is some possible parallel there.
He's just don't encourage it. He's just going to start on the Benjamin Harrison presidency
moving
next.
Forward to the 70s. How are Republicans?
Look, the 1970s, please.
To David's point, look, this is obviously an evolution, but it's sort of like what Hemingway say. It's gradual then sudden, right? We've been moving this direction, and then suddenly this last year, you might say we kind of fell off the cliff of congressional influence in Washington. And it's fascinating to see a president, first time I've seen it, in his first year in office, basically try to do nothing legislatively. He did his big tax bill, obviously. That was necessary to keep the tax cuts that he had passed in his first term going, and he threw other policy into it. But broadly speaking, he didn't go to Congress and say, this is my one chance to really do something big and permanent, like Obamacare, like No Child Left Behind, like other things.
A signature legislative thing, we would say.
And he doesn't seem to have much of a plan for any further plans that way, because he does want to use executive power. But the danger in that is that the second the next president comes in, if it's a Democrat, for instance, they can simply say, I now hereby overturn all the executive orders the last guy did. Now, that doesn't mean it would change overnight, because a lot of things he's done have real lasting impact. But it's not permanent the way legislation is. And the Republicans in Congress, to your point, are willing to let that happen and willing to be quiescent, at the very least until the primary filing deadlines, when they see whether or not he takes aim at them.
David, are tariffs in 2025, or is tariffs Trump's own preoccupation?
Tariffs is one of these weird places where you can see the kind of cleavages in the conservative movement. So whereas in most of Project 2025, there is a clear view. On tariffs, there's a debate within Mandate for Leadership, the 900-page document, between a sort of Peter Navarro, current White House aide, and sort of Trump acolyte on tariffs, and Trump's Svengali on tariffs, and a more free market conservative vision. And I think what you see is places like the Heritage Foundation that still retain that older school conservative, free trade attitude, accommodating themselves, knowing look, if Trump is the president, we're going to have tariffs, and we just need to sort of find a way to cope with that in order to get the other, particularly socially conservative goals we have.
Put it this way, if the president they were serving didn't have strong feelings on tariffs, what would 2025 have said? Would it have been more traditional Republican?
Yes, it would be closer to the old school.
Yeah. Let's talk about Russell Vought, who I think maybe won, along with Stephen Miller, maybe the most quietly or semi-quietly influential person in the administration. And he has very, very pronounced views about government itself. I want you to listen to one famous quote that he was caught saying in a fit of candor.
We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want to put them in trauma.
Talk about the vision there, the impetus behind that description of what he wants a federal bureaucracy to look like.
Well, first of all, cruelty is the point, right? I mean, every president of the modern era has felt some frustration with the federal bureaucracy, Republican and Democrat. They find themselves hamstrung by the rules and the red tape and the resistance and the inertia. But this is the first one who comes in waging war on it, and Russ Vought is his field marshal, right? It's not just that the bureaucrats need to be reformed, it's that they are the enemy. They are evil. They need to be made into villains because if nothing else, it provides an excuse if things don't get done, and it allows Trump to have an enemy. Trump plays best politically when he has somebody to go after. He likes the fight. This is why COVID was a problem for him. COVID wasn't an enemy he could go after. The deep state
that's why he called it he spent a lot of time blaming the Chinese.
Because he couldn't think of some other way to attack it, right? And the Russ Vought has given voice to this instinct of Trump's, which is to find an enemy, and the enemy is the people who work for the federal government.
And also trying to get rid of all these thousands of federal workers is trying to get rid of any kind of check and balance that may have existed.
It's another, like Congress, it's another
Right, it's another check,
hampering.
Another potential check to the president, which is, including career lawyers who work across these agencies who say, no, actually, if you attempt to do this policy change you want to do, that may be illegal. And now there's no one doing that, including at the Justice Department, which is not independent anymore, and at other key agencies. I mean, I have talked to federal government workers who are still inside who, yes, Russell Vought was effective. They are not happy about going to work. They are pretty miserable. They're depressed. The morale is low. And many are afraid that they're going to be fired or forced into layoff and retirement come next year because they expect more will be happening across the federal government.
In addition to expanding the executive branch, or part of that plan for Russ Vought is also making OMB, the agency he oversees, much more powerful, having much more heavy hand throughout the administration, and weakening GAO, which is the kind of the oversight wing, the legislative
That's the accountability office.
Yeah, for Congress, and Congress relies on the GAO, and they think that there's a huge disproportionate focus on GAO, and they're trying to completely destroy that.
All the inspector generals are gone.
Yeah.
Right. Well, David, one thing I don't understand, I understand why if you're a fast-moving executive, you want to be disinhibited. You want the chains off you in terms of the bureaucracy. You want to be able to do things you want to do. And there are plenty of bureaucrats in the federal government, and some people do actually slow things down. I don't understand, and maybe you can explain it in the context of 2025, I don't understand why the government has fired so many line scientists, for instance, people who are not doing bureaucracy, they're actually looking for Ebola. They're actually trying to cure cancer. What do they have to do with this, and how does that fit into the overall vision?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One of them is a kind of opposition to scientific research from the government, skepticism of climate change.
Wait, stop. Number one doesn't make much sense to my mind.
Sure. I mean, I think there's a sense that they're often pursuing very liberal goals. It's climate change. It's gender ideology, as they term it.
Yeah, but the mass of the research is just done on diseases that kill large numbers of Americans.
Well,
red, blue state doesn't matter.
There's an entire, I mean, this is an interesting dovetail with the MAHA agenda, which is skeptical of that research. It sees it as in bed with big pharma, pushing in the wrong direction.
MAHA, for those of you who don't know, is Make America Healthy Again. That's the RFK, whatever you program.
Right. Yeah. And so they want some of these things to be private. They want some of these things to be done outside of government. Some of them, they just don't want them done at all. And they want the government to be smaller.
Right.
Meanwhile, measles and wolfing cough cases are up across the country.
Right. David, I want to read something that you wrote about the cultural aspects of this. Quote, with a little imagination, we can glimpse the America that Project 2025 proposes. It is an avowedly Christian nation, but following a very specific, narrow strain of Christianity. In many ways, it resembles the 1950s. While fathers work, mothers stay at home with larger families. At school, students learn old-fashioned values and lessons. Abortion is illegal. Vaccines are voluntary. And the state is minimally involved in health care. The government is slow to police racial discrimination in all but its most blatant expressions. Trans and LGBTQ people exist. They always have, but are encouraged to remain closeted. How explicit is this in the framework of the 900 pages?
Extremely. I mean, basically every one of those things, I could point you to a page where that comes from.
Right.
This is the vision they want, and they're very clear about it. They're not, I think what's interesting is there have been, claims about hidden agendas for many years. There's no hidden agenda here. They're very clear about what they want.
They actually published
the
agenda.
They put it online, in 2023 for everyone to read.
Right. One more question on that, because I'm interested I'm interested in where Trump's inclinations diverge from 2025's inclinations. I mean, Trump seems to be historically fine with at least the L's and the G's and the B's, maybe not the T's. Right. We see that. But this is not a person in Donald Trump who would overturn marriage equality. Is it? I mean, I get that the heritage people might, if they had their druthers.
I think what they found is common cause on this fear of wokeness, this idea that the cultural left is taking things over. And so you start by knocking out DEI programs and wokeness, but pretty quickly you're getting into things like civil rights enforcement, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. All of these things become very connected for the people at this heart. And I think, for Trump, he's getting what he wants. And if they want to go further, it's not a huge problem for him. He's having to let them have their run.
Right. Let's go around the table for this last moment and talk about what each of you is expecting for 2026 in terms of the agenda laid out in this report. Laura?
Well, I think they're going to go further to the point that you guys are talking about. They are going to continue to attack transgender rights and the ability for gender-affirming care across the country. They also are going to continue to, as much as possible, stop legal immigration and strip away immigration, even going so far, immigration status, and even going so far as to potentially denaturalize U.S. citizens.
Yeah, I think that's right. I saw a tracker online that said that they've achieved or are in progress about 50% of the things that are in Project 2025. There's lots, therefore, left still to do. One of the things that they've been very successful at, and I would expect to see more of, is their war on DEI, on the notion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the notion that diversity is an admirable goal, even if you don't necessarily want quotas. They have managed in just a very short amount of time to create a new culture in the country, not just in the government, across the board, where private employers feel the need to retreat from DEI. And you're going to see, I think, an acceleration of that in the second year. And I think that what's going to be fascinating to see is whether there's any backlash at some point, because they take it so far, right? Eliminating even discussion of slavery in some instances, eliminating Martin Luther King Jr. Day as free admission in the national parks in favor of a free admission on Donald Trump's birthday. At some point, the question is, do people, and this is a very multicultural
Trump's birthday happens to fall on Veterans Day.
Flag Day.
Flag Day. So at least there's are they really doing that because of his birthday, though? Have they articulated it that way?
They put it on the list. It's Donald Trump's birthday. They put it on the list. By the way, Flag Day was not a free admission day last year when it was also.
That sounds very Turkmenistan-ish.
Well, if Turkmenistan had a Kennedy Center, you would not be surprised, right? I mean,
right.
I think the question, though, is in a multicultural country, at some point, does that begin to go too far for people? And by the midterms, we'll see.
To be fair, and I want to get over here quickly, but to be fair, the Democrats, according to polls at least, have gone too far in the identity politics area.
There's a backlash by people who feel like things got crazy.
The opening was created.
I talked to a young pollster, a college pollster, who asked people in New York at a focus group, what word do you associate with the Democratic Party? He says, HR department.
Wow. Leanne, quickly, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. In my 5 seconds I have left.
In your 5 seconds. What's going to happen next year?
Well, we're obviously watching if Congress continues to hand over all of its power. The president's poll numbers might make them grow a spine, but the president wants no legislation done next year, so we'll see if they follow suit.
David, last word to you.
So much of what Trump wanted to do is take this control. Now he's got it, and they have agendas. They have bullet points for every department of the government. We're going to start seeing that stuff more.
Are they, what Peter said, are they 50% down the road?
I mean, I think if you factor in the executive power grab, they're further along than that. They're further than they expected to be, certainly.
Well, we're going to see, as they say on television,
Happy
only
New Year.
time will tell. But anyway, we're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank our guests for joining me, and thank you at home for watching us. And from all of us here at Washington Week, we want to wish you a very, very happy New Year. I'm Jeffrey Goldberg. Good night from Washington.
Corporate funding for Washington Week with The Atlantic is provided by...
In 1995, two friends set out to make wireless coverage accessible to all. With no long-term contracts, nationwide coverage, and 100% U.S.-based customer support. Consumer Cellular. Freedom calls.
Certified financial planner professionals are proud to support Washington Week with The Atlantic. CFP professionals are committed to acting in their clients' best interest. More information at letsmakeaplan.org.
Additional funding is provided by Koo and Patricia Ewan for the Ewan Foundation, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities. Sandra and Carl DeLay Magnuson, Rose Herschel and Andy Shreves, Robert and Susan Rosenbaum, Charles Hamowy through the Charles Hamowy Fund, Steve and Marilyn Kerman, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.